Ice got reset, I think. Yep, there it is.
Hey! Hello! Technical difficulties.
Kung, 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 kung.
Welcome back to the LAN Party Podcast. Today is Tuesday. What's the date? August 27th.
Yes, I know that. It was the one day I didn't have to ask.
Oh, yeah, because it's your birthday.
Yep, and I had to fucking work. I think in my 5 years of employment, actually this will be my 6th birthday that I've worked. I think out of those 6, I've had 1 off.
I generally work on my birthday because my birthday usually falls on the middle of the week.
So, you want to know what sucked about last year? Last year my birthday fell on the first or second day of class, and it was a Monday. And I turned 21.
Nice.
So guess who couldn't drink a whole lot even if they wanted to? This guy. Because I had class the next day. And it was Monday. This year it's not much better. My first day of class was yesterday, and it's Tuesday. But we are here. We've got plenty to talk about today. Nate is MIA. He was painting wheels, so I would have expected him to be here by now. But he might roll in a little late. Always possible. But I want to touch base on a lot of things today. Everybody in this room is a big fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We all like superheroes. And
superheroes.
So we're going to kind of talk about the Spiderman deal a bit and
that whole
get into
fiasco.
Yeah, get into what's happening because there's a lot of like mismatched news out there, and I don't know what's real and what's not, but we're going to kind of try and dissect that a bit and discuss what we think about the whole situation. I'd like to wait for Nate to be here for that though, because Nate originally had strong opinions on the new Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I.e., he did not like him.
Oh, he didn't?
No, he didn't like Tom Holland when he first debuted in Captain America. He's like, hey,
how's he feel now?
He likes him better now, but he's like, there's better Spider-Mans. There's not. There's really not.
I mean...
Better Spider-Mans, better Spider-Men.
Spidermans.
Yeah, I don't know. But there's a lot to talk about on that.
Oh,
and
I
then
heard a door.
Oh.
I heard a door here. This might be him.
Is it him?
It's not. It doesn't drive his Focus anymore, so it's hard to tell when he's here.
Well, he drives a muscle car. You can hear muscle cars. It is him. Look at that.
Oh my God, he's here.
Wow.
The Challenger is about
Whoa.
5 times quieter than that Focus.
For now.
Yeah, for now.
He's gonna make it louder.
I don't doubt it, but for the time being, it's it might as well be whisper quiet.
It's pretty noisy. I can hear him when he's coming up to like when we go on midnight runs to like fucking McDonald's. Like I'll be standing out in the driveway and I'll be like, "Oh, here comes Nate."
Did you check out my my donut? The thing on my car right now.
That he didn't send a picture of in the chat because
didn't send a picture
he assumed you had 2 eyeballs and could see.
Yeah, that's true. But it's on the right side, and my right side is facing the other way, so he wouldn't have seen it unless he would have never walked. Anyways,
so we'll just jump in and talk about some fun little things. So first off, I know we touched base on it last week, but I think the update launched the day after the podcast. The Space Engineers Economy update launched. And boy, oh boy, is it fun and scary all at the same time. So Nick's been experimenting more with the factions than I have. And by experimenting with, i.e., shoots at innocent factions and sees what happens.
Bad shit.
Yeah, apparently the civilians are not to be tampered with.
Oh, they don't fight back very often. It's the police.
It's the police that come to their aid.
Yeah. And modded ships come in. Yeah, having some of the IMDC ships spawn in and then come after you is terrifying as fuck. Because those are some really well-built ships.
Yeah, because they're made by players, not by developers.
Yep.
Not that the dev ships aren't well-built, but the players know all the tricks in the game and like the mildly unintentional use of blocks. So they definitely use that. But the trade stations are pretty neat too. Have you found one yet?
No, I have not.
Oh, they're pretty cool. So I found a trade station, and it was a shipbuilding trade station. Like, it was a bunch of builders, like constructors. Now, there's no NPCs still. Like, you won't go to these stations and find little shops with people, get your ships here. No, it's like there's blocks. I'm sure you know that from looking through the block list. But
Yeah.
there's a block that you can go and buy stuff. And the stations are, like, built out so that they've got little, like, living quarters, so you can go up and stay in the living quarters and then come down and trade. And but the shipbuilders, like, you interact with the block, and it is completely constructed ships, like top to bottom, ready to roll. You buy it, and it pops up in the safe zone, or right outside the station, and you just get in it and go away. It's really neat.
Now, can you add in blueprinted ships?
I think there's a way, but I don't know how, because they said it supports player ships. So
my God, could you imagine the lag of having even a Unity just
Well,
popping in?
And I'd have to figure out how that works, because I don't imagine that, like, you just load a blueprint into the machine and then they buy it, because that would essentially create an infinite loop of resources. So if I have enough credits and I need some construction components, I can just buy this super cheap ship here and just buy it a bunch of times and grind it down for my supplies. I don't know how all that works. I would be interested in trying to figure it out, though. But yeah, could you imagine selling a Unity for, like, several billion space credits? Well, that would be useless, though, because if you put it on the planet's surface, it wouldn't be able to leave. It would bing, crunch. It wouldn't fit in the safe zone.
Yeah.
The biggest you can make the safe zone is 500 meters in diameter. That ship is almost a kilometer long.
Yeah, I'm sitting there thinking, it's like, okay, so that would fit almost none of our ships.
No. None of our ships are 500 meters in length. The small ones might be.
It's a mystery.
But the... I think you should go with the chrome ones, by the way, from what you just sent. But that's me. The Space Engineers Economy update's really cool. The space credits, the faction system's really neat, because you can actually generate a reputation with factions now. So if you want to be a space pirate, you can be.
Yeah.
It's just impossible because everybody will hate you. And
even then, the pirates still hate you.
Yeah. Oh, do they really? Have you increased your reputation with the faction?
Oh, yeah.
Just to see what happened? What the crap?
Yeah, and I don't... This may be because I'm on creative, but your reputation, well, even if it's like absolute shit, will eventually go back up without you doing anything.
Interesting. No, I bet it's supposed to be that way.
It may be creative, but yeah, probably. And it's really fast. Like,
It might be accelerated in creative, though.
Maybe.
But this functionality also works with, like, player-to-player factions on servers. So, like, you can interact with other factions that players own and operate and generate reputation with them. They can set up contracts, be like, hey, we'll pay X number of space credits if you go fix our Corvette out there. Here's a contract. Load it up in the block, and then they go and fix it, and they get their credits. And it comes out of the faction bank. So the faction actually has a bank of credits that people can withdraw and deposit from. It's a really neat update. Among many other things, that economy stuff is really cool. Wreckfest updated today, and anybody on console will be happy to know it's on console now. Yay!
Tyler.
Yeah, except he can't play with us.
Woo!
I don't think it's cross-platform.
Okay, cool.
Because there's no workshop, I don't believe. But with that came a whole slew of fantastic, destructive additions to good old Wreckfest. Anybody that's watched the stream when we played Wreckfest knows just how chaotic it can get, and how insanely hysterical it can be. Just when we race like lawnmowers against school buses.
Send it.
Well, yeah. Now, our options have gotten so much more broad. They added the big rig, which is a semi-truck,
Oh, God.
They added motorhomes. They added mobile couch cars, like little couch carts. And then if you get the season pass, one of the expansions will add a bumper car. Another expansion will add, and I am not making this up, I couldn't if I tried, a pilotable, engine-powered outhouse. It's
Really?
called the Honey Pot.
The honey pot. Of course it is.
I'm just trying to imagine. Oh, and one of the expansions that comes before that actually adds an like those little roof decorations that you can put on your car. You probably can't put it on the outhouse one, but it adds a little shit pile that you can put on the top of your car. Like the little shit emote, you can put that on the top of your cars with that expansion. Fantastic additions to the game. Absolutely brilliant.
By the way, I totally get those chrome plated ones, but I just looked and they're $200 a pop.
That's about average for a wheel.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
Mine were
800.
120.
It's average for a 20-inch wheel.
How big are yours?
Not 20 inches.
I was about to say, it's like, you probably have 17.
150.
I have 16-inch wheels.
$150 a pop is average for an 18-inch wheel.
I have
And
16
it just
inch.
kind of goes down
wheels.
a little bit.
And it's chrome plate. It's not like chrome colored.
That's how most chrome things are.
Well, yeah, and I'm just saying it's not like polished aluminum or polished steel. It's chrome plated.
Yeah, I mean that's how.
You need to get some Koenig wheels.
How much are those?
Would they make those? Yeah, they probably make those for the Mazda.
Mm-hmm.
At least in the Mazda
I
bolt
think
pattern.
he has a Ford bolt pattern.
More than likely.
You should have kept your old ST wheels and just given them to him.
Well, those wouldn't fit.
Yeah, you could make them fit.
Different bolt pattern.
You could make them fit.
Yeah, you could, but
Yeah, you just either slap an adapter on there or just grind those holes out a little bit to one side.
you can get the silver version.
That'll be fine.
You can get the silver version of the wheels I have in my Focus, like $100 a pop, for your size probably.
But do they have the right bolt pattern?
They should. You have a good bolt pattern.
So on to
Spiderman.
Yeah. All this big fiasco. So I'm going to break it down because I know not everybody in the room has paid much attention to this. I've paid pretty good amount of attention, and I'd imagine Tyler's kind of kept a weather eye on it as well, just knowing you.
I've not been keeping too close a watch.
No,
on it,
but
yeah,
you've been
I've been
keeping,
I've been looking for some stuff.
So for those of you that don't know, and I actually think it happened last Tuesday, and I was mad that it happened on Tuesday because it was after the podcast, and it would have given
happened
us
like literally after we got to the podcast.
Yeah, it was like an hour after we wrapped up, and then it was like, all right, this is so. For those of you that don't know, Spider-Man in the MCU. The MCU is Marvel and Disney. That cinematic universe is Marvel and Disney. Spider-Man is owned by Sony. Sony owns the publishing rights to Spider-Man in film and game and whatever. Which is why it was such a big deal for him to appear in Captain America Civil War. Because Sony and Disney reached an agreement to do, I think it was 5 films or 6. He had 1 extra film after this most recent one. So, they reached an agreement, and Spider-Man was able to be in the MCU for, I think, 6 films. And that agreement fell apart on Tuesday. And you can look at it from tons of different ways. A lot of people put the blame on Sony. I did it first as well. A good chunk of people also put the blame on Disney, and I am now of the belief that I feel like it's kind of a mutually earned blame.
Yeah, I mean they're both kind of at fault. It's both two people just kind of like throwing slap fights at each other.
What happened is originally this deal set it so that Sony really didn't have to do anything with Spider-Man. Sony essentially let Marvel use Spider-Man in the Disney MCU. And in exchange for that, Sony would get 100%. It was either 100% or 95. Regardless, we're going to say 100% because that's what I've heard more of. 100% of box office profit.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have to pay any production cost. To my knowledge, even if they did, they get 100% of box office. And in exchange for that, Disney got to use Spider-Man in the MCU, and they got ad revenue and merchandise profits. Now, let's be real. Nowhere near the amount of money is going to be generated from merchandise and ad revenue as box office. Spider-Man worldwide, just like last week, cracked $1 billion in box office. Disney didn't see a dime. So, Disney's like, hey, our contract with Spider-Man's up. Can we renegotiate? And Sony's like, sure. Disney's like, we want 50-50. And Sony pretty much went, nope, bye. We're keeping Spider-Man. See ya. Bye. Sayonara. And that was that. Like, I think what I think actually happened is Sony offered again to have what they had. And maybe that's for the 5%, because I heard Sony said that they would give Disney 5% and they would keep the other 95%, and Disney said no. And this is where I'm torn. First off, I think both offers were a slap in the face to both companies. Don't ask for 50-50 for something you don't own. Even though you're doing all the work, they're not going to say yes to that. In the perfect world, they would, but in the reality of business, they're not going to split the profits 50-50. They have no reason to.
Mm-hmm.
Second off, Sony's counteroffer of 5% box office, that's like flipping the middle finger. Don't do that. What I have heard rumored is that they are now behind closed doors trying to negotiate a 30-70 split. Disney would get 30 and and Sony would get 70. And I've also heard that they would try to include Venom in the MCU and they would produce his movies as well.
Yeah,
like they would cover production costs.
That's what I've heard so far.
But I have not heard anything from Disney. And this news came out before the D23 exposition that Disney was hosting. And nothing was said about that. As a matter of fact, Tom Holland just said it's been a great ride. I love you guys. And Kevin Feige pretty much said the same thing. And that kind of muffled everybody because that sounded like the end of it. But I did read a couple nights ago that Kevin Feige was stepping back in with Disney to try and renegotiate, which they've got to let that happen. Because it's going to hurt Disney horribly. Whether people blame them or not, when it comes to the setup of the cinematic universe, they can't afford to lose him.
I mean, for the sake of story and the continuation of the series, no.
That's what I mean.
For the sake of
money, yeah, they can afford to lose him.
Afford it.
But like the way they've set it up, and again, Nick hasn't seen Endgame, so we have to discuss this without discussing Endgame, which really isn't that hard because Spider-Man's role in Endgame was minor.
He was dead for the beginning of it, so I know that much.
Well, there was a Spider-Man movie announced after Endgame was announced, so you knew that he was coming back.
Yeah, I figured that much out.
But kind of in Endgame, but more in the Spider-Man Homecoming, because I know we three went and saw it. They have been really setting him up and pushing him to the front of the MCU as the new Iron Man.
Yeah, the next...
And the reason I say the next Iron Man is not because he's going to blah, blah, because the way the MCU started was with Iron Man. Iron Man kicked the whole thing off, and the whole Infinity Saga, in some loose way, was about Tony Stark. Like, it really was. The whole Infinity Saga. Ultron, Age of Ultron, Vision, those two characters were because of Stark, and then it all kind of circles back around either Tony Stark or Howard Stark, but that whole character arc was the Infinity Saga. Now, there were other character arcs, but he was kind of the poster child.
focal point.
And I think they were planning on doing that with Spider-Man.
Yeah, then Sony's just like, nah, see ya.
Yeah. So
everybody's like, what the fuck?
This is where it gets really messy. And I was talking about this at the beginning before we actually sat down and had this discussion like on stream. But the other big downside to them losing Spider-Man rights is not that, they just can't make another Spider-Man movie. No, they can't use Spider-Man in any regard. Spider-Man
has everything going forward. They'll never mention him again.
Yeah,
if he never existed.
He's ceased to exist in the Spider-Man or in the MCU. Like
maybe they'll refer to him as Night Monkey the next time.
There was this one it was an incident in it was like Spider Monkey, I think, or Night Monkey. Night Monkey is what it was.
That's the one.
No, which is awful because of first off, what the hell are you gonna do with Happy Hogan now?
Yeah, he doesn't really have a purpose anymore.
He has no purpose. And I loved Happy Hogan. Jon Favreau played such a good Happy.
I would hate to have that name personally.
Happy Hogan?
Or just Happy in general.
Especially with somebody like...
You seem really happy. Fucking not, dude.
Well, especially his character always seemed not always happy. He was just kind of perpetually miffed at something.
He just seemed annoyed all the time.
He was annoyed because his name was Happy.
Yeah, exactly.
He was annoyed because Peter Parker ghosted Nick Fury. You don't ghost Nick Fury. Click. Have you seen that meme going around too, where it's like when Sony tells you that you won't be in the MCU anymore? Click.
Also, I recognize the council has made its decision, but given that it's a stupid ass decision, I've chosen to ignore it.
It's true though. This is so it actually bothers me that this is happening because not because I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, but Tom Holland really was the best Peter Parker Spider-Man combo in my opinion. I've been going back and watching all the MCU movies in order of storytelling, not just in order of release. So which movies I've got a list of movies to watch in a specific order. So that you can kind of see all the parts from various movies weave in. And I'd watched Homecoming a couple weeks ago, but that was before all this Disney Sony split news. I watched Infinity War 2 nights ago after all this. And when he comes in Infinity War and Tony Stark's just about to get smashed and the dude stops and you see Spider-Man peek around. It's like, hey, Mr. Stark. And it's just God, he's such a good character. He plays him so well. Such an innocent high school kid who's also an Avenger. Yeah. He just does such a good job. And it totally sucks that right now he's not going to be in that universe anymore. Because I was super excited to see the MCU Phase 4 and 5 and whatever build upon him. And just see where his character goes from here because he was honestly
it's so much potential.
He
so
did
much room for growth.
He played the character so well. He looked the part. He acted the part. He was such a convincing Spider-Man and Peter Parker both. And nothing against Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, but
Spider-Man as Peter Parker, yes. As Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, yes. As Peter Parker,
no.
He
was a whiny baby, and then he had a good Spider. But Tom Holland did both so well, absolutely well. And I think part of that is Tom Holland has made it clear in tons of interviews, he's always wanted to be Spider-Man. As a kid, he dressed up as Spider-Man for Halloween. He wanted to be Spider-Man. So somebody that has such an attachment to a character is going to do their damnedest to give that character,
do it justice.
Yeah, and it's just, it sucks.
Yeah, it really sucks. Oh, well, looks like they're coming to some sort of agreement.
Possibly. The other concern that I have about that whole 70-30 split, because it seems too good to be true. This deal that's in the works now, and heavy emphasis on air quotes here, in the works, is that they would get Spider-Man for another 7 movies, and they would incorporate Venom into the MCU, which would be cool. I wouldn't mind that. And then they would also...
I'd like to see Marvel's interpretation of it.
Yeah, they would also be able to bring in other Sony characters to the MCU. And again, Disney would cover the majority of the production cost here.
I don't know what other characters Sony has.
Probably the
unless
Spider-Man
other-
universe
in the
characters.
Spider-Man universe
Yeah.
of characters. So like Black Cat and Venom.
There was another one that started with S, I think, but I don't remember what it was.
Well, I mean, there's the villains like Rhino, Scorpion, and
Yeah, I think it was some of the villains.
other things.
But you know, it would let them use those characters in the MCU, and again at Disney's expense, and then they would get Spider-Man for another 7 movies, I think. So it would be one more to finish the current trilogy, and then 2 more trilogies. And then they would help Sony with their animated Spider-Man adventures, and it would be a 30-70 split. And that just seems too good to be true. Like, again, Sony has nothing to lose here, regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they take the deal or not, they have nothing to lose except press, good or bad. Like, they're going to lose a public opinion, but that's going to go for either company, really. They have everything to gain, though. If Disney is, and again, this whole offer that's on the table is, there's no confirmation from any official source, so we don't know if this is actually happening. These are all my buddy who has a friend that works in the Disney department that knows a guy that works under Kevin Feige said. That's pretty much all we have. But if that deal is true, Sony has no reason to say no. Disney is offering to finance a good chunk of these movies to be added into the biggest movie franchise in the world,
And then
likely of all time, really.
and Sony gets 70% of the
And
profits.
Sony is going to get 70% of those profits. I wouldn't say no.
Yeah.
I get that, and I get part of it is that Sony might want to try their hand at making a Spider-Man movie again, but I'm going to tell you, after, 5 failed attempts? Well, 4. The first Spider-Man movie was all right. But every Spider-Man movie after that wasn't really that good.
There were more than 3.
Yeah, there was the original trilogy with Tobey Maguire, and then there was the Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield. And I thought there were 2 movies, but maybe
Yeah,
there
there
were.
were 2.
Yeah.
And then there was a standalone Venom movie, which I still haven't seen.
The standalone Venom movie got good reviews.
Yeah, I still haven't seen it, though.
I haven't seen it either, and the Into the Spider-Verse got good reviews. And if that's Sony's indication of trying to make good movies, great. But you guys messed up Spider-Man 5 times, 4 times. The fans know that.
You rebooted him twice. You killed Uncle Ben twice.
Yeah, and the fans know what you did with Spider-Man, and they're not, and they don't want to see another Sony Spider-Man. But now, not only do the fans know what you did with Spider-Man, but they also know that you took him from the MCU. And now those fans are really mad. So, Sony has every right to do what they want with a character they own. But in my head, financially, it's better to partner with the biggest movie franchise in the world of all time.
Yeah, it seems like it would be the smart thing to do.
There is literally no movie company making more money right now on their series of movies than Disney is with the MCU. And they just cranked out tons more movies. They're like, we're going to have these movies and these movies and these movies and these shows and these shows and these shows. And guess what? They're all part of the MCU, so you'll get to see all of these and watch how they weave in with their characters. And
Not to mention they own the Star Wars license.
yeah. And they just got the Fox Marvel characters, so they've got the X-Men and the Fantastic Four and Deadpool. Those are all part of the MCU now.
Nice.
Because everybody was like, ooh, we might get to see Spider-Man and Deadpool.
Are we not gonna? I hope they keep Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool.
I'm sure they will, but
for sure.
it might not be an official MCU movie.
Yeah, because I can't see Disney making a rated R Deadpool movie.
Oh, they'll let it happen because it just won't be part of the canon MCU. Because the Avengers, the worst thing they say is son of a bitch. Like, they don't... Oh, no, I'm sorry. The worst thing they say is
They said shit a lot in game.
That's true, they did. They said bullshit a lot. I went back and watched Infinity War the other night though. There were some comic gold moments in there. And again, one of my favorite Infinity Wars.
You one better. Why, Gamora?
I like that. Do it, Quill. I can take it. And you just see Iron Man's got this giant gun pointed at Drax, and Mantis is like, "No, you can't."
He can't take it.
Doctor Strange, no, you really can't. Who is your master, or who do you serve? And then you just got Star-Lord. What am I supposed to say? Jesus?
Oh, so you're from Earth?
No, I'm from Missouri. That's on Earth, dipshit.
What is it exactly you guys do?
Kick names, take ass. Yep.
That's right. I like how Drax immediately backs her up. Straight face. That's right.
It's insane how much you notice the next couple times you watch a movie. Like the scene where they're in, like you introduced to the Guardians, and he's like, Groot, put that game away. And he's just like, I am Groot. And he's like, put it away now. I don't want to tell you again. I am Groot. And everybody in the ship's like, whoa, watch your language. Except Drax. He's like, wow.
Wow.
Like he was impressed.
Drax is my favorite character
Drax is priceless.
of all time.
There were so many good I was so happy to see the Avengers, like the Endgame and the Infinity War movies, because you got to see all those characters from the different universes interact, and I was not disappointed with the Guardians meeting Stark and Doctor Strange and Spider-Man in the slightest.
Yeah, it was all great.
Mr. Lord, you can call me Star-Lord. Be like, see, their thing is more like winging it. We don't really do a plan. And he's like, now I hear your plan, but it's a terrible plan. So maybe if you let me do the plan, it'll actually be good. And then the look on Tony Stark's face will never cease to amuse me. Like when he's just like kick names and take ass, and Drax is like, yep. And
Yeah, the look on his face, you could just see him die on the inside.
He's like, we're doomed. This is the end. We have no hope. This is over. It's over. Giving up. I just could not. I never. Fucking. If you throw another moon at me, I'm gonna lose it.
Such a good movie.
But yeah, that's and I watched that in that scene where they introduced Doctor Strange and Peter Parker, and I was I watched that scene and I was
Strange. Oh, we're using our made-up names.
The look.
In that case, I'm Spider-Man.
The look on his face too. He's just like, oh. We're using our made-up names then. In that case, hi, I'm Spider-Man. And I'm like, this is why Tom Holland is the best Spider-Man. He's so innocent.
Strange just kind of looks at him for a minute. Turns around.
The fucking Ben & Jerry's Avengers flavored ice creams. A hunk of Hulk burning love. No, I love that movie, and I'm super stoked at all the movies that are coming. And honestly, like, I hate the fact that I might actually have to get Disney Plus if not for anything other than the fucking Avengers or the not Infinity War, but the MCU TV shows. There are tons.
Well, I might get it just for The Mandalorian.
Well, that's also true. The Mandalorian looks good. That trailer looked really good.
Yeah, I mean, talk about dark.
Also, something that happened after our podcast last week. Ewan McGregor is returning as Obi-Wan.
Yeah, in a spin-off series.
In a Disney Plus series, Ewan McGregor will be returning as Obi-Wan Kenobi. I am so happy about that. Because if there was anything savable about the prequels,
it was Obi-Wan.
It was Obi-Wan Kenobi. And
we'll see all his adventures in Tatooine, I guess.
Yeah, I'm actually excited about that. Granted, we have no release window on that. I think they said they'd like to get it out fall of 2020. So about a year. I
didn't see the release date trailer or release date on The Mandalorian.
I don't know that they had a release date actually. I think it might be in November actually with Disney Plus.
Well, we have the power of the internet.
I think the Disney Plus is going to be huge. Like, I have a feeling I have a feeling the reason they haven't launched it yet is because they're trying to get as many series under its belt as possible for launch.
The Mandalorian is an upcoming American space western web television series.
Wait, what?
What? I didn't expect that description. Oh, man. Are you ready for this description?
Yeah.
Nate, pay close attention.
Nate, are you ready for this description? Whew. That was that was an interesting read-through. The Mandalorian is an upcoming American space western web television series scheduled to premiere on Disney Plus November 12th, 2019.
Space western.
You know what it is, Nate?
It had one desert.
No, you know what I think it is.
Western.
I think I know exactly what it is. Nate, you and I had this discussion a while back, and it might have even been on a Space Engineer stream. Sci-fi people are trying to get the classification of Star Wars to not be sci-fi because it's not. And I have so many problems with this statement.
Star
because
Wars
it's not.
Sci-fi.
Well, because it's not scientifically accurate, and so a bunch of people are trying to make it not sci-fi.
Most sci-fi stuff is a little bit more accurate, like Star Trek.
Well,
Star Trek is more accurate in ways, and then like Stargate is also that way. Battlestar
Tell me what the
Galactica.
second word of sci-fi. What is
That's what I'm
fi
about to
short
say,
for?
is like-
Fiction.
Isn't that the whole point?
But-
Is like it's abbreviated with science fiction.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
the
but
way you're supposed to do it is you're supposed to get your facts right and then skew them to your pleasure.
Yeah, that's the fiction part. But Star Wars is science fantasy. It's more like Lord of the Rings in space.
So if I look up its classification, it's going to say science fantasy and not sci-fi.
No, because I don't think that's an actual genre. It's just what people say. Because you wouldn't call Lord of the Rings historical fantasy or historical fiction. It's just fantasy.
So here are genres it's been classified as: science fiction, duh;
Yeah.
action, duh;
Okay.
adventure, duh; fantasy,
Aha.
Yeah. Okay.
epic,
But that's the fourth
Yeah,
one.
that's epic.
mystery. This is
if you're really dense, sure.
This is the one that's furthest reaching, and I am not making this up. Space opera.
No, that's actually one of the legit classifications.
I know, but when I think opera, I think like singing in Italian at really loud volumes.
It's the modern opera,
Yes,
which is one of the reasons
Wagner
why I
would
think-
be proud.
Which is one of the reasons why I think the new series kind of falls flat because the music isn't as good.
There was some good music. There were some really good. I seem to recall really enjoying the music in Episode 9 during the fight scene with Kylo Ren and Rey fighting off like all the weird trooper people, the red ones, after they killed Snoke. Oh, fun fact about that scene, by the way. You ought to go back and watch it in slow motion.
Yeah, it's fucking terrible when you
It's
do that.
horrible. I watched a video where a stuntman was analyzing, and he's like, "This is one of my least favorite scenes." And they're like, "Why?" And he's like, "So let's watch it in slow motion."
Yeah, you see Rey, she kicks one guy and three of them fly away.
Well, three of
And
them fly
there's-
away, but the one guy that gets knocked out, he reacts faster than she does, and he's not supposed to, so he kind of turns around and just waits for a second and then goes back after her. He's
and
like,
then also like there's another scene where she's fighting a guy with two daggers, and the guy pulls her back and gets her in like an arm bar, and as he comes around, the other dagger is gone. because the choreographers realize, or the guys in the editing room realize, hey, you know what? He's got her trapped and he's got a free arm with a dagger. If he just did that, he'd just fucking stab her and she'd be dead.
I just like, you need to go back and watch it in slow motion and watch the actual choreography, not just the unrealistic kick and three people fall. Like,
Yeah, I know.
He says there's
seen the shit.
Yeah,
It's fucking bad.
it's hysterical. Like, you actually see them when they get out of battle, they exit screen and they come back and form almost like a line. Like and they walk and they go real, and I'm like,
And then they sit there and then they sit there and they wait until Daisy turns around and go, "Hurrah!"
It ruined that scene for me because when I saw that in the theater, I'm like, this is awesome. And then I watched that video and I'm like, wow, it has 110% ruined my perception of the scene. I will never see it the same ever again. You want to talk about good film scores, though? Again, without spoiling anything, and if this film score doesn't get an award, I am going to riot. Fucking Avengers Endgame.
And Infinity War for that.
And Infinity War. But Endgame, like, all the things that happened at Endgame, the musical cues happened at the exact right moment. And I'm just like, I've gone back and listened to several parts of that soundtrack, and it was just, have you heard, you'll know what I'm talking, Portals? You know what scene I'm talking about when I say Portals. But you know the track?
Oh, no, I haven't.
You need to go listen to that track. That is, that and the hero theme that plays at the end, all-time favorite. Like, those are coming up close with, like, my John Williams favorites. Like, they are phenomenal tracks.
Yeah, I still don't think, I think it's, like, several John Williams soundtracks for me. Hans Zimmer's Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, Hans Zimmer's got some really good scores.
Avengers is starting to come up there.
Dude,
at like
Alan Silverstreet? Or Silvestri? One of those, I can't remember how to pronounce his last name. He also did the soundtrack to Captain America, like the original one.
Yeah.
And that's one of my favorite movie soundtracks.
Yeah, that one's really good.
He is a fantastic composer.
Super good.
You want to know what, so this will be an interesting fact for everybody in the room while we're on the topic of music. So Avengers Endgame, when the movie starts, it scrolls through the Marvel screen.
Mm-hmm.
If you pay attention to Avengers Endgame's Marvel credits, all the people that were snapped out of existence in Infinity War aren't there. You want to know something even better? They play the film score in the beginning with half of the orchestra. Not a full orchestra.
Really? That's a neat touch.
Neat fact. I did not realize that. But somebody's like, yeah, they said that the score for the beginning of the movie, like the opening title, was half of the orchestra to kind of emulate that
empty sound.
Emptiness. And I'm like, that is so cool.
Yeah, that's
those
really
two
neat.
things combined are so neat to me. Like, whoever had the idea to do that, 10 out of 10, get a promotion. That was a fantastic idea.
And there was another one, like in the beginning, Marvel, when they go through the comic book opening, all the snapped characters aren't there.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. In that one.
You said credits. Credits are at the end.
Oh, I meant the intro. Yeah, that's what I meant. The credits to Avengers Endgame are phenomenal. That would be the one credits that I would watch. Just an absolute perfect way to wrap up 10 years of movies. And then obviously you have the Marvel logo in Captain Marvel, which was all Stan Lee. Like, it was just a bunch of escapes of Stan Lee, and then at the end it formed Marvel, and it said thank you, Stan, for everything. Which also, back to the Spider-Man topic, Stan Lee's daughter has stepped in and said some words about it.
Oh boy.
You know what I'm talking about, right? She says that Disney and Marvel treated her father poorly and that they never did his work justice. And they disrespected his life's work.
I don't know. I've never read the comics, so I don't feel qualified to comment on
I've never read the comics, but Stan Lee has made it clear in tons of interviews that he absolutely adored what Disney and the MCU were doing. He's like, it was so fantastic to see all these characters on the screen together. Like, he vocalized his support for the MCU tons of times. Here is what it is. When people die, their people's family want their money. His daughter was not the greatest daughter to him. Apparently, she was tried for abuse for both of her parents, him and his wife.
Oof.
And her and her boyfriend or husband or whoever were also found for attempting to extort his financial wealth. So she was probably a little salty when he didn't leave her all of Stan Lee's greatness. And so she's probably trying to get it through Sony by saying Sony did the right thing, blah, 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 blah. And her saying that because she's Stan Lee's daughter is going to Sony's. I don't know. Probably a bunch of behind the curtains money deals, but I hate that. I hate when somebody dies, people try to say no. No, it's my money. Glenn Fry passed away a couple years ago from the Eagles, and his wife, just a couple weeks ago, tried suing the hospital that pronounced him dead for, it was like X number of millions of dollars that she lost because he wasn't performing with the Eagles on their tour.
Really?
I'm not making that up.
Christ.
And you want to know the hospital's response? If you show us how much he could make, we'll own up, or show it was something like show some proof that it was actually. And she hasn't come forward with any new documents. She said that's an invasion of privacy. If you want the money, you gotta step up.
Yeah, because guess what? That amount of money, she's gonna have to pay taxes on that. She doesn't want to.
No,
She was hoping
hoping that she was gonna get like $2.5 billion because he hasn't been playing with the Eagles or whatever, and it's fucked up.
She was probably hoping
You should
they'd
be
settle out of
fucking
court
made right now.
just to silence her.
What'd you say, Nate or Tyler?
I said she should be fucking made right now.
Yeah, you married Glenn Fry, and those are the people that didn't marry Glenn Fry because Glenn Fry. They married them because money.
Yeah, because of what he did.
Yeah. We were talking about Stan Lee's daughter, how she was abusive. Also, thank you, Black Rose, for the happy birthday. But it's so twisted when people, like, those two situations, Stan Lee's daughter trying to extort Stan Lee and then smashing Disney and Marvel for not doing her father legacy, please. That's clearly malicious intent, trying to get money. And Glenn Fry's wife, she's trying to get money. There was another situation when Tom Petty passed away and they released his American Treasure album of a bunch of live performances, and it was Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers' American Treasure. His daughter's like, no, it's just going to say Tom Petty. No. Because here's the way I look at it. Would Glenn Fry want that? Would Tom Petty want that? Would Stan Lee want that? No, maybe on the Glenn Fry.
Maybe on the ground. Maybe.
But my point is, people take it, and I don't think Tom Petty's daughter tried to be that way. I think she just
said it and then went off.
Like, I think that was her person, but I don't think she was trying to extort or get more from what it was than she was going to. But with Glenn Fry and Stan Lee, that was just like, do not bring using Stan Lee as a scapegoat for.
Don't put words in the mouths of the dead.
No,
please.
It's just twisted.
Let their legacy stand as it is.
It just, I was so sad when I heard that news that fucking Sony and Marvel split. And like I said, originally I was mad with Sony, but here we are, and I'm honestly mad at both. I've searched up that article so many times now, though, that it's actually showing up in my recent, or like my quick search.
Nice.
But and the thing that sucks too is I think Tom Holland's still gonna play Spider-Man. And if I was Tom Holland, I mean, it's a cash cow, but I feel like too, if you stick with Sony, you're probably gonna make a bunch of people mad. Which is really weird because it was reported that after this big split, granted, I know it seems subtle, but I think it was his silent way of choosing sides. He unfollowed Sony on social media.
Nice.
And he stayed followed to Marvel Studios. But then he's like, I'll play Spider-Man as long as they pay me to play Spider-Man. I'm like, well, but that doesn't line up with the thing that you did.
I mean, he's an actor.
I mean, he has to make money, yes, but I don't know. It's just what actually happened between Sony and Marvel without going into it again, because we had a pretty lengthy discussion.
They broke up and Sony took the kids.
Yeah, both companies wanted more money, and Sony did not want to share.
Want to settle. So they're apparently going back into renegotiations, but that's just rumored.
They fucking better actually be doing it, or better do it to begin with. Whether if they're not, they need to be. But yeah, so that's the brief overview. So I did see a few little things from some people on the interwebs regarding Sea of Thieves. Apparently, I think it was Gamescom that happened this past weekend, wasn't it? Something like that.
I don't know.
Apparently, Gamescom happened, and there was a playable banjo in the demo at Gamescom.
Really? It's about fucking time, dude.
So, I don't know when that's supposed to release. I'm crossing my fingers that it's next month is one of their new content additions, but it was
We'll
just a
have to wait
playable
and
demo,
see.
so we have no idea. Also in that playable demo, they had pets. And I've seen a video. Captain Falcor is actually a pretty big name on YouTube when it comes to Sea of Thieves stuff. And he said that he watched a developer stream where they were just, not one of the ones where they were playing the game, but like one where it was a developer Q&A and they were sitting around a table talking with each other. And they mentioned pets. And I thought he said that they were coming in September, like with the next content update.
So potentially this next content update could have a lot of stuff with it.
Potentially.
Hopefully.
I really want the fucking banjo. Like,
Right? I've been waiting for that thing since they fucking had it in the
so since
Legend
the game opened,
hideout. Yeah, that too.
it's been there since the game opened. I don't know why they've dangled it over us. They have teased us with it so much now.
Why? I mean, they had it in the Legends thing, and then they
added
fucking added fishing, and the banjo music plays in the background.
And
when
if
you're
you go to
fishing.
the arena in the Sea Dogs Tavern, there's a banjo sitting up on the wall, and I'm like,
Why?
stop.
it! Come on, give me the banjo.
Pets
think
like cats. I don't know if cats have been confirmed. I do think they accidentally confirmed parrots.
Yeah, but still,
I would
banjos.
imagine, banjos. I would imagine cats will be there. I would imagine that your pets are going to consist of
Your-
parrots,
your classic pirate fare.
small monkeys. Cats are in the art of Sea of Thieves, so
Maybe.
they could make it.
Ooh, crabs! Crabs are everywhere.
And then the crab, the little itty bitty crab, that's in every freaking trailer. I'm sure if there is no crab at some point, people are going to get mad.
yeah, crabs are everywhere in that art.
Especially because now that if you go to the Devil's Roar and you go to the outpost in the Devil's Roar, there is a crab crate.
There's a crab grate.
Yeah, there is a crab container that you can catch crabs in.
Nice.
It's been there since they launched Devil's Roar. I don't know why it hasn't generated as much of a fuss, but it's been there.
Oh, it's an actually interactable.
Well, I don't
object?
think you can interact with it, but it's a clearly different crate. And I thought at one point I read somewhere that it was called a crab crate.
Oh, and also, I think we should know that pets are coming soon because the cages in the captain's quarters are now in galleons.
Are you serious?
They're interactable. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
you can open and close them.
I wouldn't know because every time I try to get a fucking crew together, I can't get 4 people. I want a chunky water cat. I'd imagine you probably
Chunky
can't
water
get
cat.
water cats
What do you mean
or
water
chunky
cat?
cats.
Did
I
you know-
don't think. What?
Did you know crabs and lobsters used to be for peasants?
Boy, I wish
That
we lived in
makes-
that time period.
Yeah, that makes sense. Especially crabs,
They were
because crabs are
considered
really easy to catch.
cockroaches of the sea, and the rich people didn't want to eat it, so they gave it to the poor people, and they had the bright idea of selling it to the people out west. Like, hey, they don't know anything about this shit. We'll sell it to them, get some money.
You know what's hilarious? You know about Japanese spider crabs, right? Those things can
Isn't
get
that the huge ones?
fucking massive. Well, little known fact, off the coast of the UK and the British Isles, they have a cousin of the Japanese spider crab in that ocean. It's a little bit smaller, but nobody eats them because they look horrifying. So there's a fuck ton of them. They're massive and they're super easy to catch. So if you want to go to the British Isles and you want some crab, I'm pretty sure it'll be really fucking cheap to get some.
I would be afraid to kill one. I honestly, like, I don't even know what that.
getting
But
one fucking alive. And
But
it's
when
fucking,
you-
it's fucking like 4 feet across with giant claws.
when you describe a terrifying looking crab, I have visions, and I don't.
How
I'm-
deep down are they?
I don't think they're that far down, but supposedly they're super easy to catch.
Like, what if you're like out scuba diving at night and you come across one? I'd be like, nope.
Speaking of underwater things, Boy, we just keep getting on tangents. Did you see they found the USS Hornet? It was an old naval carrier that sank during World War II.
I haven't heard of the USS Hornet.
If you look it up, it's pretty eerie, but they found it. It was, I think they said 17,800 feet below the Pacific surface.
Damn.
Mm-hmm. But they found it on the first try. They compiled a bunch of data to try and figure out from various ship logs and like messages in and out where it went down, and they went to one set of coordinates, and first attempt to find it, they found it. It was creepy because you could still see like the ship, like the plane tugs, and it was shipwrecks are always.
They like sent a submarine down there, and they're like, "Oh, hey, look, here it is. Good job, guys. You sank properly." Unlike everybody else who can't sink in the right spot.
Yeah, and it's 17,000 feet below the surface. That's deeper than the Titanic.
Yes, that's pretty deep.
It's pretty deep.
What is it, like
Pretty deep, bro.
8,000 feet? Is that the deepest a person can dive with equipment?
I don't know.
That sounds pushing it.
That sounds a little high.
that
I think it's
sounds like
800.
8,000 feet sound like 8,000. Yeah, I don't think you could do 8,000
Yeah, it
feet.
does- it does
Because
sound
because
pretty high.
for every meter you go underwater, you increase the pressure by 1 atmosphere.
I'm curious now.
So, you know,
So at a meter down, you feeling 2 G's of pressure,
not quite.
but close.
I don't think
That's
that's
gravity.
how
That's
that
different.
Works.
Oh, well.
It's the
Atmosphere is air pressure
around
on
you. It's
you.
the atmospheric
Okay.
pressure around you, like pushing in on you from
Still,
all sides.
I thought it was
The-
like.
The record for the furthest somebody's dived is 1,000 feet.
So yeah,
Okay,
I
yeah.
thought the number was between 600 and 800,
Yeah.
like on normal.
I think a dry suit can get you down to about 800 almost without any too much complications.
Because most of the time, the locations that you see that people like dive, you
It's
can
between like
well that and
90
you
to
can still
200
see the
feet.
light,
Yeah, that's
like shining down on the ocean floor. Like you're deep enough to where light can still hit the bottom.
Yeah, and that's only about 200 feet.
No, the Britannic is a diveable wreck, and it's got the sun hits the ocean floor on that one,
How far is it down?
and not 200 feet. I don't think. Now I have to look because I'm curious. Yeah, if the ship was 883 feet long, I'd imagine it was. Surely to God, that's not right. That can't be right. 65 feet? That can't be right. Is that like hull depth, maybe? Because it's got all the stats on the ship. It says length, construction started, depth, yard number, and launched.
Yeah, I think depth is
It's probably from the hull down, like where it sat in the water.
yeah, waterline down probably.
Yeah, because let's say if it was 65 feet of water, it's like they'd be raising that thing.
Yeah, they would have pulled it up.
I don't know. Here it is.
Even if it
The
was-
wreck of the HMS Britannic is at these coordinates. I'm not going to read them because it's a handful. At about 400 feet below the surface.
400 feet. Okay.
Yeah. Now, I'd imagine if you dive it at the right time, it's dark. But there's pictures of it at the bottom of the surface with light,
At the bottom of the surface.
or at the bottom there.
I'm surprised they haven't raised it, honestly.
I'm not.
400 feet's.
It's a war
It's a-
memorial.
And it's also very big.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
883 feet long.
Yeah, it's the Britannica, the sister ship to the Titanic.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
not exactly the smallest vessel ever made.
A lot of people, and I'm kind of one of those people, kind of get. I'm not near to the extent of some people, but a lot of people will get pretty bent out of shape if you go disturbing a shipwreck. Like I'm not to the point where like I don't like people going and exploring different sorts of,
Yeah, it's also the
pulling up a couple coins or trinkets from the ship, but people get real finicky about that. But I'm kind of one of those people where I don't believe that you should disturb a ship as a whole after it's sunk. Like it's a grave.
It's the same reason they haven't touched the Arizona.
Yeah, it's a grave. I mean, that would, to a lot of people, moving a ship is the equivalent of like grave digging. To a lot of people, taking like trinkets and shit out of the ship and putting them in museums is grave digging, but I'm more okay with that because it's history, but I don't believe in resurfacing whole ships.
I was fine with them resurfacing the Mary Rose, but that motherfucker sank in 1500, so...
Did you know cold water was heavier than hot water? I did not know that.
It's denser.
And on another spooky eerie fact,
it would be more massive, but not necessarily heavier.
Another spooky eerie fact regarding the White Star Line ships, I also came out a couple days ago that the Titanic, within our lifetime, will no longer be there. It is deteriorating at a rapid pace.
Mm-hmm.
I guess there's some sort of
crazy
metal-consuming bacteria at the bottom of the sea there.
Rust consuming.
Well, more than
salt
just rust.
Yeah, the salt in the ocean just is horribly destructive.
They said that there's a famous
steel.
picture, I guess, of like the captain's cabin with the captain's bathtub, and that room is no more. Like the staterooms are gone. That room has collapsed on itself. They said within decades the ship will be gone completely.
Speaking of the Titanic, there's a new one that's going to be sailing.
Yeah, I saw about that.
I think next year or in a few years.
Yeah, it's a couple years. It's supposed to be like it looks like the Titanic on the inside and the out, but with modern technology. I don't know if I would get on that.
Yeah, I know. It's apparently sailing the same route too.
Yep.
And I've seen a postage be like, it should be fine now considering we melted all the icebergs.
They should put like some kind of black box on it or something, just in case.
I assume they're going to.
I'm gonna not get on board that ship because the last one did not have a very good fate.
Was that the Titanic's maiden voyage that it sank on?
Yeah, but everybody. So there's a misleading thing. Everybody says that it never made it to its first destination. It did. The Titanic
it sank on the way back, didn't it?
No, it launched in like Liverpool or something like that. Or it was built in Liverpool and it launched from somewhere in the UK. But it sailed north to a few ports north of the UK and picked up passengers and dropped passengers off.
Didn't finish its first voyage.
It didn't finish the first voyage completely because it was gonna hit those northern locations and then dash across the Atlantic to New York. It sank after all of those ports, in between those ports and Atlantic. It made it to its first stop. It didn't complete its first voyage. That's where a lot of people get confused. Because people
might get on that the second time they sail it.
Yeah. Because people got off the Titanic. Like there was actually, we went to the museum in Gatlinburg when my family reunion went, and there's pictures, like a photographer took pictures of the ship and all the people on board and like had them printed. Like you had the actual copies of the photo in the museum, and everybody's like, well, that's not possible. All that stuff sank with the ship. No. People could get off the fucking boat at those ports. It sank.
Could you imagine if he got off at like the last port?
I think he did.
Yeah, and then
he got off on the last port.
Like, wow, I'm lucky.
1,500 lives.
Going to New York.
1,500 people died on that
crazy.
ship. It is still the largest amount of deaths at sea.
Yeah, and
at once.
That's the main reason why all modern ships have to have appropriate capacity for lifeboats and stuff.
You know, it's funny, as I think I also read at the time the Titanic had the appropriate number. Like it met regulation on lifeboat numbers.
Well, yeah.
But the regulations were looser.
Yeah, they were a lot looser. And so they carried the minimum that they could.
Because they didn't like the way they looked.
Because it looked bad and also weight.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I don't think weight was that big of a deal.
Well, but it was probably, it looked bad and it was space. I mean,
Yeah,
it was
space.
more stuff they had to make space for, more money they had to spend.
Have you seen those?
It was already over budget.
Have you seen those really nice self-riding boats they have?
The lifeboats?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think all the cruise liners have them now.
Do they now?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Those things are awesome.
They just drop them and done.
And all those new lifeboats have, like, they've got food and water in them, too, to keep people alive. If, in the event that you're stranded at sea for days, they have a pretty ample amount of food and water.
But they're not all like that, are they? Like, that's just some of them, and they have, like, Inflatable life rafts.
No, all the cruise ships have lifeboats.
I know, but do they have enough for all the people, or is it just?
No, they have enough for all the people. Lifeboats wise, they've got enough for all the people. I think, yeah, and I think each lifeboat comes equipped with life preservers and rafts in case of something. But yeah, it's safety measures. The Titanic really.
Yeah, it's a new world we live in now.
Yeah.
Shit, when did the Titanic sink again?
1912.
1912.
April 14th, 1912, I think. It was either April 12th or April 14th. Now I'm not sure. I used to know everything there was to know about that fucking ship. And that was probably one of the reasons I didn't like going on the ocean. I'm still a little sea fright, but it's just insane, and it's kind of sad to think too that the Titanic we will outlive the Titanic.
Yeah.
Which is insane. A fact that a ship, granted it's and what's insane about it too though is the glass is still perfect. They said if you go down below the surface, like they've got pictures of it. That's why they just sent an expedition down like 4 nights ago. And there's new pictures, and the new pictures, like the glass still looks clean and like not cracked. Like it is.
Those things are not. They don't wear as much.
It ain't
as
going.
steel does.
It ain't going anywhere. Yeah, but you'd think the amount of pressure at 12,000 foot would shatter that glass.
No, because it's even on all sides.
Well, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe not on the top though. I mean, because
it wouldn't.
At that point, you have pressure everywhere.
Well, also, you don't have pressure differences on either side of the glass. Like you have problems with glass shattering under pressure when you have a capsule and you have a glass on the outside of it, because you have a pressurized capsule that is a different pressure than the outside. Water's pushing in on that, then you have fracture problem. But as just a piece of glass, I don't think it will. That's just me as a layman thinking.
Well, interesting tidbit. And then the amount of people that are like, just bring it up.
They can't. It's too
you
deep. You
can't. Man. It is 12. It's more. It's almost 13,000 feet below the surface. And not only is it already in 2 giant pieces, it was the biggest ocean liner of its time. So don't act like it's going to be an easy feat, even if you could. But they're making these comments on the article that says the ship is deteriorating at a rapid rate. You cannot pick up a deteriorating thing and expect it to survive. Are you out of your mind?
Yeah, at this point, if they picked it up, it's probably just going to disintegrate.
If I guarantee you, if they'd have bumped it right with the submarine, they would have punched a giant hole in it.
Probably.
The metal is that soft.
Plus, like, steel of then is not steel of now.
No.
Yeah, it's not modern steel. It's not as pure as modern steel is, and also seawater and other things in the ocean just wreck steel, raw steel, and I bet most of the paint, if not all of it, is gone. So all of the steel is now rusting and falling apart. The only thing you'll find left there would probably be like brass rails.
Probably.
Yeah, any brass and copper.
If we ever go to
Gatlinburg,
Gatlinburg,
would be gone.
If we ever go to Gatlinburg again, or any of you guys do, I encourage you to go down to the Titanic Museum. It was actually incredibly fascinating. Like, so much cool stuff there. So, on that interesting note, we are going to head out. We are slated to do the Sea of Thieves role-playing game tonight, so provided everybody shows up, we will be here. And, yeah, it should be around 8:30 Eastern time. So come hang out with us for that, and we'll see you then. We're going to go get food now. Bye-bye.